Welcome to the second week. Hopefully you guys all had a good first week and got to see a bunch of presentations with your managers and see some sales. That's pretty exciting. Collect a bunch of referrals, right? So what we're going to go over today, let's just recap. First week, you started off the week with Tommy. He went over the opportunity. Second day was Casey. He went over phones and a little bit of rapport. Third day was, I'm pretty sure, Vince. He went over the intro and getting his presentation started. And then Drew on Thursday went over the no cost benefits, right? Friday, we had Tommy do a recap. Does that sound familiar? Looks like that's what we did. Okay. Great, great. So now, the first half of the presentation's over. We're moving into the second half of the presentation, which is the stuff that we're here for. The insurance, right? So now, what we're going to go over today is going to be whole life and term. If you're going to take notes, whole life and term, and the needs analysis. Okay, that's it. I'm going to stop there, and then tomorrow, you'll get some more juice. Okay, you'll get beating rebuttals proactively and all kind of good stuff. So, basically, the one thing I always like to make sure is whenever you're meeting with your client, make sure you're prepared. You have to be prepared. So, you guys can't see it, but up on my screen, I always make sure I have my slideshow pulled up and I get myself in the e-app to the needs analysis before I even present to the client. I want to get myself all the way to the needs analysis so that when I get to the needs analysis part in my presentation, the flow is going good. I'm not sitting there like, hold on, clicking buttons, getting myself all the way to the needs analysis. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys. And basically I just started it from the beginning just to kind of get us going here, but I'm going to get us up to the part where we talk about the needs analysis. Okay. So, I know some of you guys use this presentation. Some of you guys have a different one a little bit. If you're using the whiteboard, this is where you would transition over to your whiteboard, right here when I pretty much got you up on the screen. So, just starting out, there's 48 different types of life insurance. I'm not going to sit here and name all 48 for you. I'll have Natalie do that, and then we'll get started. I'm just kidding, Natalie. I ain't going to do that to you. But they actually fall under the two main umbrellas, right, of term, which is for the if in life, and whole life, which is for like the when you die, right? So term, if you pass away while you have it, you're covered. Anything that you'll ever get offered through your job will always fall under this category. Now, it typically works in periods of 10 years, periods of 20 years, periods of 30 years. I'm just going to use an example of a 10-year. You guys pretty much do the same thing, right? So say you were 35 years old when you bought your term policy and you did a 10-year, $100,000 policy, okay? It probably would cost you right around $1 a day, $30 a month. Now, as those 10 years go down the road, you hit the age of 45, pay attention to the verbiage. If you wanted to keep this insurance, what do you think would happen to the cost if you wanted to keep it? Do you think it will go up, go down? You think it would stay the same? I'm asking the client that, right? I want them to be involved and listening to me, right? So sometimes they'll be like, it goes down. Now, I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, you're wrong. I'm not going to like shame the client if they don't know, okay? I'll say, oh, you're close. It actually, in this situation, what happens is you become more of a risk, so they increase your premium, and it typically will double. The premium will typically double about every 10 years, right? So now you're paying $60 a month for that same program. 10 more years go down the road, guys. You're hit the age of 55. Obviously, you still need that same insurance. What do you think would happen to the cost? Now they pretty much can get this one right? They're gonna be like, it goes up. Like, yeah, it actually goes up. It doubles again on you. And now you're looking at like 120. And then all of a sudden you make it to the age of, retirement, pensions, 401k, Social Security. You can finally start drawing after all the years of putting into it. And what do you think they do with your insurance benefits? They'll be like, it goes up. Like, yeah, you're right. They either raise it right through the roof where we pretty much can't afford it by adding a zero to that 120, which is like a mortgage payment, or they just cut you off altogether and say you're no longer allowed to have it. So we consider term like renting because people will pay into it over the course of their whole entire lives. They'll make it to a certain point in that career, right? And what do you think happens? They give the keys back to the landlord, nothing's left. Now, I'm not bashing term ever. It's good for certain things. income protection, mortgage protection, debt. Not meant to be in place forever though. Okay. So term insurance. Next type of insurance is whole life. Now, whole life is for the when you die. It's inevitable. We're all going to pass away. None of us know when, right? So the same person, 35 years old, that 100,000 might cost them $80. But the only difference is once they get it, it stays locked in for life, right? So you can be 45, 55, you could have a heart attack, get cancer, make it all the way to the age of 100 years old. It still remains the same price. And it pays out to your family 100% of the time when you pass away, okay? It's also a tax-free benefit, okay? So it builds interest at tax-free. I'm sorry, it pays out to your family tax-free because you're paying with it with after-tax money, and it builds cash value. Now, do you guys have a bank account, right? I'll typically ask the client this. Do you know what the interest on your savings account grows at nowadays? It's like 0.25% to 0.5% if you're lucky. Well, this, while it's protecting your family, is growing at a guaranteed rate of 4.5%. So not only are you protecting your family, but you're also saving money at around 20 times the rate your bank can do it, right? The other thing that whole life insurance has is paid up options. So just like you could pay off your home, you could pay off your policy, right? You can make it to a certain point and stop paying it and have that amount sitting in an account for your family when you pass away. So guys, these are the two main types. There is one other type. Typically, you don't have to get into it. Only usually if they're like, hey, I got MetLife, or, you know, if they were like, I got AIG, you might want to break out the whole old universal program, right? Now, you guys are new. I don't want to confuse you, but long story short, a universal program is just a glorified term policy, okay? So they put a word in front of the word whole, and it either says universal or flexible premium adjustable life. Now, if a company's going to flex your premium, which way are they going to flex it? Up, right? And if they're going to adjust your life insurance at the same time, which way do you think they're going to adjust it? Down, right? So basically, they'll start out at a low rate, and then they'll just jack the cost up on you over time, because every year the cost of the insurance goes up, and then you'll hit a certain point where you end up having to pay $500, $600, $700 a month for insurance. Won't be able to afford it, and you'll end up dropping it. But we don't got to get into that. Most of our clients don't even have insurance. The ones that do, it is good to know how that works. This way you can have it in your back pocket, break it out, because if they have a universal or flexible premium, it should be a sale pretty much every time. Okay. Now, if you wanted to take it another step farther, I'm not going to like tell you guys to do this in your presentation. I just want you to understand term and whole. All right. So I'm going to kind of turn this just so I can show you guys.
If you want to give me the numbers for here.
Well, here, check this out. So term, let's just say you have a bucket here. All right. This is your bucket, and you're putting your $30 a month into it over all those years over the course of your life, right? You're paying for something called cost of insurance. You make it to the age of 65, a hole goes in that bucket, and all your money is gone. It goes back out to the insurance company. There's nothing left. Okay. Now, at whole life, you have a little bit bigger bucket. You're putting a little bit more in there as well, right? Over the course of your life. The same amount is pretty much going to go towards cost of insurance as of up here. You can't get around that, right? You still have to pay for the cost of insurance. But now there's another category in that bucket, and they call it the cash value. And that's what grows at that guaranteed rate of 4.5%. Okay. So like I said, not only are you protecting your family, but you're essentially building money at 20 times the rate your bank can do it. Now, that's like, I'm going that extra mile if I go over whole life and term and they're like, I still don't understand how it works. Then I might take it that far for them. But I don't typically got to do that, because look how simple it looks on the screen. If you really wanted to break it down, Matty D, who is like Tommy's right-hand man that he brought in back in the day, one day he was like, I keep it so simple for the clients. I go like this. Term is renting. Whole life is owning. See the difference? Rent, own, that's it. Right? And he kept it that. You just want to keep it simple for your client. You don't want to you got to remember, these clients have no clue about insurance. A month ago, you didn't have a clue about insurance. Like a month ago, I could have asked you, Natalie, what's the difference between whole and term? You probably wouldn't have been able to tell me. So keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid, simple for them, right? Now, like I said, if they don't know, you can take it the extra mile for them. You can break it down a little bit farther. Give them another analogy somehow, okay? All right. So after I go over whole life and term, what you got to do is you got to ask the client, which one makes the most sense for your family? And what do you think they're going to say? They most likely are going to say whole life. And when they say whole life, you say, okay, why? And let them sell themselves on why they say the whole life was the most important. Right? You got to keep your client engaged and ask questions, talk to them. If you're just sitting there talking to them the whole time, they're not listening. Does that make sense? Are we on the same page? You know what those are called? Those are called tie downs. Right? You want to get what they say, 50 yeses before you get to the end. They say you want to try to get 50 yeses before you get to the end of the presentation and conditions your client to say yes, right? Even using tie downs though. Things like, do you understand the difference between whole life and term? Yes? Okay, so this makes sense? Yep. All right, great. We're on the same page? All right. Now, their union, we now roll into the list of concerns, right? So your union goes through contract negotiations, and have you ever been a part? We're in training class, brother. You could go grab a case. Wherever you want. All right, so I usually keep a million waters in here, but every time I come in, they're gone. So
There's no water here.
I know. We're trying to get a machine. But basically, your union goes through contract negotiations, right? And I'll ask the client, have you ever been, have you been with the union long enough where you've been a part of a contract negotiation or seen any type of strike or lockout? Because I want to know. Because if they're like yes, then they can relate, right? So that your union goes through contract negotiations, and basically the members, us, we brought a list of concerns to the board, which is the labor advisory board. Do you guys know what the labor advisory board is? The labor advisory board sits 50 union presidents from all the unions, Teamsters, police, nurses, steelworkers, coal miners, firefighters. The NFL guy sits on there, right? And every year they come up with solutions to problems that the members are having. Well, this time around, the members, us, we brought a list of concerns to the board, and there were 6 of them. The first one was the lack of permanent and portable benefits. Edgar, they're finding out that when we retire, our benefits get cut back so much, we end up having nothing. It's almost like we're not in control of them, and they take them away when it's time to leave. So the first area that they really dove into, though, guys, was for final expense protection. Now, here you got to ask questions. Have you ever thought, Edgar and Aubrey, if something were to happen to you two, would you want to be buried, cremated? Buried. Okay. And do you know what the average burial costs nowadays? Yeah, you're right on the money, man. Did you have to deal with this recently?
Yeah, family member.
Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that. If you don't mind me asking, what happened?
So it was in a car crash.
Wow.
He passed away. Now their family didn't have insurance, so
Oh.
now everybody had to pitch in for the.
Wow. I'm very sorry to hear that. Yeah, we hear that all the time. But do you see how I dove into it a little bit? Yeah, good. But you want to ask questions. Did you ever think if you'd want to be buried or cremated? What are you leaning towards? If they're like no, if they say no, say okay. Do you know what the average funeral cost? Don't sit there and say, do you know what a cremation costs? Because then it's you're lowballing yourself. You ain't gonna get a nice check. So if they say no, to say okay. Do you know what the average funeral costs nowadays? If they say yes, they know what they want. If they want a cremation, I'll say, do you know what a cremation costs? Do you know what a funeral costs? Right? And whatever they say, I'm not going to say no if they're wrong. Again, I'm going to say, yeah, you're close. You're actually, it's between 7 and 15,000, for an earth burial. And then I'll click the button and it will pop up here on the screen for them and show them. If they want cremated, 3 to 7,000 on average. And guys, this is today. 20 years ago, you could get buried for 4 to 5,000. 20 years ago, you could get cremated for less than $1,000. But every 20 years, milk, bread, eggs, I hate to mention the G word, gas, right? What happens? It goes up, doubles. So this pops up on the screen. Everything's expected to double every 20 years. It's called inflation. The rule of 72, right? Even the materials used to make this desk double every 20 years, right? So you can do this for them. So Edgar, how old are you? 30?
26.
26. All right. So you're 26. I knew you were younger than 30, but you're 26. Do you have any longevity in your family? No. No. How old were your grandparents when they passed away?
They're still alive.
They're still alive. Awesome. Awesome. How old are they?
80.
You have longevity in your family, man. What do you mean? Right? So ask them though, and you should find this out really when building rapport, but if you don't have that by rapport, ask them here. Do you have any longevity in your family? If they say yes, say, okay, great. Well, the chances of you making it to the average male life expectancy is pretty likely then, right? Well, if you're 25 minus 85, how many years is that? 60. This stuff's going to double 3 times over the course of your life. So,
I don't even want to know the price of we got it.
yeah, they say between 80 and 100,000 if you pull out the projected funeral chart.
For a 25-year-old?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I also will let the client know this is one of the main areas that the company recommends you have whole life protection, because we all have 2 guarantees in life, guys. You want to guess the 2 guarantees? That's right, death and taxes. And I'm from an area where I've seen people get around taxes, but I've never seen anyone get around this one, right? Makes them laugh a little bit. All right, then the next concern that they had for the members was the loss of income. Now, do you two rely on each other's income? Yeah, if something were to happen to you, Edgar, it'd probably make things a little bit hard around here, right, Aubrey? Awesome. Well, it is hard enough without you. Imagine without your paycheck, right? So the company looks to have anywhere between 3 and 5 years of your income protected. Basically saying, Edgar, if you don't come home, whatever is most comfortable for you over these next 3 to 5 years, whatever you choose to protect your family with, will still come home for them every single month like you never left, right? Paint the picture in their head. You guys got to get good at painting a picture doing this. Like, you have to kill them off with final expense. You have to show their family struggling if you don't come home with the paycheck. You have to paint a picture for these people and make it real. Okay? And that's typically where you're going to use term with income protection. You're typically going to use some type of term protection. Okay? Now, the next concern was the mortgage. Do you guys rent or own your home? You rent? You own? All right. Well, if they rent, you can do 3 to 5 years of rent protection. It's not like, oh, we don't have to worry about that. No, do 3 to 5 years of rent protection. Hey, listen, if you lost your best friend, the worst thing would do to have to move to a smaller home a month later, but same thing with owning. If they own their home, I got to ask very smart questions. So, okay, you own your home. When you bought your home, did you do a 15-year or a 30-year mortgage? Those are typically the 2 types, 15 years or 30 years. Write those down. Because you want to sound like you know what you're talking about. And then say, how long have you lived in the house? How long have you been here? Oh, you've been here for 3 years. So you still have 27 left, right? Do the math for them. If they know what type of mortgage they got, find out how many years they live there, and do the math for them. Oh, you did a 30-year? Okay, you've been here, what, 3 years? So that means you got roughly around 27 years left to pay off the house. Now, here you go. Now, let me ask you, Edgar, if something were to happen to you, who would be responsible for the mortgage? Would it be Aubrey? Okay, so Aubrey, I'm assuming if something happened to you, then you would be paying the mortgage every month? Okay, great. So we actually have protection in place where if something were to happen to either one of you, it could pay off the house for the other one. No more mortgage payment. It's got to pay the taxes, which I hear crazy out here anyway. We could build in some tax protection too, right? because they are. Everyone complains about the taxes in Illinois, right? They move out of the city so they get lower taxes. Build in some tax protection. Hey, you got this beautiful home. What do you pay a year on taxes? If their house is paid off, change mortgage protection to tax protection. Oh, you pay $8,000 a year in taxes? All right, well, we'll have the next 10 years of taxes covered for your family if you die, if their house is paid off. It's just another avenue for you guys. It's giving you guys some good stuff here. Hope you're taking notes. And then the next area of concern that they had for the members was child education or debt protection. You guys got two little ones for this example. So Edgar, obviously, if something were to happen to you, I always like to say, if you want them to go to college, great. But if you're no longer here, can we give them an opportunity? And guess what they always say? Yes. Yes. Because I used to get beat like, oh, you want your kids to go to college? They'd be like, no, I had to pay for my own education. They could pay for their own. Or no, I didn't go to college. College sucks. So I always hit them with if you're no longer here, can we give them an opportunity to get an education? And they always say yes. They never say no. You're never going to have a parent say no, they don't want their kid to have an opportunity to get an education. So I'll then ask them, do you know how much it costs typically for a child to get a 4-year education?
No.
No? Okay, well, I went out of state, I'll tell them, and I'm over $100,000. But they say anywhere between $20,000 and $100,000 per child to get an education. Huh?
We can't use 500,000.
500,000? I mean, we can only sell 200,000 most and accidental at one time. So, I mean, if you want to use 500,000, go for it. You're just gonna have to sell some term with it. But yeah, I mean, you can say whatever you want. My PowerPoint here says 20 to 100,000, so I just say whatever it says on the screen. That's all. Now, most important part. You guys want to make money? This is the most important part of the closing process. Write this down, Natalie. Ready? Most important part of the closing process, and I'm only picking on you because you're next on the screen for me. But write down most important part of the closing process. Anyone want to take a guess on what it is?
Get them to choose one.
I'm sorry?
Get them to choose which is the most important to them.
You got it, Bobby. So they always make me ask, and you can tell them there's no wrong answer. But if you only got to choose one of these 4 areas to have protected, what is the most important to you? And a lot of times they say all of them. Say, okay, but if you could only choose one. And then when they choose that one, you circle that bad boy. If they say income, circle it. And then hit them with this. Ready? Write this down. Why? And then they're going to say, oh, like say, most husbands, I'll be honest with you guys, they'll say income or mortgage. Most wives, they'll say like the mortgage or the debt or the child education, right? If he said income, I circle it. I say, okay, Joe, why did you choose the income? Well, because that's the most. Without my income, the family ain't gonna, they'll be screwed. Okay, and why is that important to you? I even hit him with a follow-up. Why is that important to you? Just because I've seen people struggle with when they lost the love, make them sell themselves a little bit there. But listen, he picked income protection. So guess what? He's at least buying income protection, right? Like if they're keen on like, I just want the income protected, don't be sitting there trying to sell him final expense protection, right? Give him what he wants. Try and sell him all of it, but I mean, he's at least getting his income. And then I asked the wife the same question. Mary, if something were to happen to you, what would you want to make sure is protected for the family? Oh, the education. Oh, why'd you say that? Because I just want them to live a better life than me. Oh, why is that important? Because I can see, look at the world out there. People can't even get jobs, blah, 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 right? Okay, great. Now, it's done. They're buying at least those 2. And if they're not, then you just didn't do a good job of assuming the sale. So most important part of the closing process, if we're looking at the notes, asking them out of all the benefits, what is the most important? After you do that, you hit them with the follow-up with the whys. Second part of the most important part of the closing process is assuming the sale and your solidification. Okay. Now, after you do this, what do we lead into? Our last no cost benefit, right? So Joe, your last no cost benefit that they have set up for you, I always put it on that they have set up for you, that the union set up for you, is going to be your needs analysis. And your needs analysis is going to take into account your current situation, and it's going to determine if you have any gaps in your coverage. If you have any gaps in your coverage, it's going to show you what it recommends. However, if there's none, nothing will pop up, right? Build this up. Joe, have you ever been to a financial advisor? No? All right. Well, if you ever were to go to a financial advisor, what they would do is they would put in place a plan for your future. And before they put that plan in place, they would look sure to make sure the plan was protected, right? Now, most financial advisors, they'll charge their clients, $600, upwards of $1,000 a year to do this for them. But because you're a part of the union, like I said, they actually set this up for you at no cost. So by that point, I'm already into my needs analysis here. I'm gonna pull it up on the screen. I tried to get the information in the top filled in as much as possible before I got the presentation started. If there's something I was missing, I could put it in there, right? But try to get all this stuff filled in so your presentation moves smoothly. You get Joe's birthday in there. You might not have Mary's yet. So Mary, I got Joe in there. It's February 1st, 85. What's your birthday? Oh, you're January 22nd, 83. Who chased who, huh? That's a little good joke for them. Anytime once you get their birthdays in there, just to lighten up the mood a little bit, who chased who, huh? You always get them laughing, especially if the wife's older than the husband. Oh yeah, I'm like, okay, Aubrey, you robbing the cradle. I see you. Try to have some fun with them, but you do got to get serious at this point too. Okay, this is a part where you want to be really serious with the client. Like I said, I just try to lighten up the mood with that little joke. I say the same thing in every sit, right? I just try to make it better each time. And let's pretend they got little Joey Jr. and his birthday. I'll just clicking buttons, and we'll put Marianne or Margaret, or how about this, Beth? We'll put old Beth in there. So we'll make it even. All right. So we got the family in here now. If you guys ever need to add more children, you can put more children in down here where the add children button is, okay? Sometimes you'll sit down with a husband and a wife. They got a whole basketball team. All right. Family member medical conditions. This is based on just them. Whoever you put on the application. It's not about their family history. It's not about their grandpa or grandpa, mom, whatever it may be. It's just about the people on the application. Some insurance companies do want to know about your family's past. Us, just them, okay? So, any internal cancers in the past 2 years? No? Breast, colon, pancreatic, uterine? I can't say the word. Insulin, diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, any heart attacks, strokes, anything like that? Is anyone on any oxygen? Any terminal illnesses? Any Alzheimer's? Do either of you use any tobacco? If you see them smoking, just be like, Joe, do you just use tobacco, or both of you guys? You know what I mean? Just don't, because I've literally had people on Zoom. The guy, you could see him smoking. He's like, I don't smoke. I'm like, dude, I literally just seen you smoke a cigarette. Like, what are you talking about? So these first couple questions up here, guys, these are like knockout questions. The only one they can really answer yes to that's not going to knock them out is right here, the tobacco, okay? Scrolling down here, family member non-medical questions. Anyone on probation or parole? I'll be like, you guys behaving? Anyone on probation or parole? No, not yet. All right, awesome. Any DUIs or arrested for any convictions or DUIs, anything like that? No? Okay, great. And then it says household information. And this is where you want to get this as right as possible, because when it displays the income protection, it's going to take into account whatever number you put in here. So you and your spouse's monthly take-home pay. Joe, what do you bring home a month? Oh, sorry, guys. What do you bring home a month? Let's say he brings home 3,000. Mary, what do you bring home a month? Oh, you just do cleaning on the side. You bring home 1,000. All right, great. Next question. Do you currently have any life insurance through work? If he's like, yeah, I get it through work, but I don't know what it is. I just get what they give me. Most of the time, it's between like 10 and 20,000. Okay. So I always say, all right, well, Joe, I'm going to lowball it for you. I'm just going to put in 10. And then, if there's anything extra, I'm sure your family wouldn't be upset with getting an extra couple thousand. Okay. And then Mary, do you get any life insurance through work? No, because you only do part-time. Here's a quick little tip. If they're part-time workers, their job doesn't offer them life insurance. Okay. All right. Do you currently have any life insurance outside of work? Well, we should know this because we use the family information guide. And in the family information guide, you should be able to get that information from the client. Okay. If you don't, here's where you get it, right? Do you currently have any life insurance outside of work? Oh, you do? Okay. You have it through your car insurance company? Oh, they gave you a discount. That's why you got it. Okay. Do you know how much it is? Oh, it's 100,000 the whole life. Oh, it's 100,000 the whole life. How much do you pay for that? Do you know? Oh, like $10. It's going to be like term. Okay. Just use your brain. All right. So let's just say Joe has 100,000 of term through his car insurance company, right? And then Mary don't have nothing. You have to put in zeros too, or it won't let you keep going. Do you currently rent or own? In this situation, let's say that they own, just so I can show you what the needs analysis spits out. Say they have 210,000 left on their mortgage. Interest rate does not matter what you guys put in there. Just take that on a note. It doesn't matter what you put in there on the interest rate box. I usually put like 3 to 4%. Okay. And then years remaining. Well, I found this out from my circle that he's been there for 3 years and he did a 30-year term. So you got about 27 years left, right? The next question, if you didn't ask it in the circle, here's where you can ask it. Do you have insurance to pay off mortgage in case of death? If they say no, look to the spouse and you're in there and say, okay, so I'm assuming if something were to happen to you, Joe, then Mary, you would be the one responsible for the mortgage? Act like you're confused. You know who it is, but it brings it out, right? And then, do you have anything saved for the kids' education? Most people, I just skip that question, but you can put it in there if you want. And then always click checking. Always click checking, okay? Then you hit submit. Very important when you hit submit to know what's going to come next. What comes after this? One of the most important parts, which is the mandatory read-off letter, okay? Now, before I hit continue, just so you guys know, there's a summary thing that pops up down here. You see that? That's for you to know where your presentation is going to go. That you don't want to sit there and explain this to the client. This is for you to know, okay, it's going to show 30,000 for Joe and Mary for whole life. It's going to show income protection of 70,000 to get him up to his full 5 years because he has 100 already. And it's going to show mortgage protection of 200K, and they're going to use ADB, it looks like. All right. So just so you know where it's going to go with the presentation and the videos, you can have an idea, okay? And then you just hit continue, and this bad boy pops up. The mandatory read-off letter. Now, I will tell you this. If you're sitting down with a union member, please read their mandatory read-off letter. Like if you're sitting down with the Teamsters, there's nothing better than pulling up the Teamster mandatory read-off letter that shows the president's signature at the bottom, or the SEIU that shows the president of the SEIU signature at the bottom. There's nothing better than that. It literally tells them in the mandatory read-off letter too, a lot of these unions, how much coverage that they have in place. I mean, how many members that we take care of and how much is paid out since 1990. It's something I like to point out. Like, we currently have over 610,000 UFCW members covered, and since 1990, you paid over $60 million in benefits. Hello, read that. That's important. Okay. But if they don't have it, if it's a referral, if it's a child safety kit, if it's a will kit, read this one. So you got to get good at reading this paragraph. I still ain't that good at reading this paragraph, right? But it says, dear member, the insurance programs being offered you today are made available on a voluntary basis to the cooperation, not cooperation. I hear all kind of crazy things. Cooperation of your union and American Income Life Insurance Company. 100% union label company with a long-standing history of serving union members and their families. We are privileged to provide insurance services to millions of policyholders throughout the United States, Canada, and New Zealand, and currently have over $50 billion of life insurance in force. AIL supplemental benefits are not in competition with any group benefits to your workplace/employer, and they can complement any policies you may already have. If you choose to take advantage of any of the programs offered through AIL, your benefits program is permanent and portable throughout your lifetime. If you qualify, your coverage lasts a lifetime and is your independent control. Once the program has been explained to you, we'll show you agree with many participating members that how valuable this program could be in a time of need. There are several benefits available. Please take a few minutes to listen to the AIL representative who is here visiting you. If they could help you your needs in this area, they ask you to take advantage today. If not, we do like your feedback, so please take a minute to complete the officer report form. We share this information with your union to help us serve you more effectively. The reason why we're asking you to make a decision today is we have several thousand families requesting our programs, and we can only visit each family one at a time. We appreciate the opportunity to serve you and your family today. After that letter, and don't like just skim through it, like read it. Take a minute and read it to them. After that, you have to use the so basic. You have to. You can't just read this and be like, okay, and go. You have to be like, so basically, Joe and Mary, here's the way that it works. As if I'm going through these benefits and you're nodding your head thinking these are really great benefits, I can see why they had it set up and all the members were excited about it. They're going to ask you to try to qualify today while I'm out here. But on the flip side, if I'm going through these benefits, you're nodding your head like, you know, these are really great benefits. They just don't feel a need for me or my family right now. Then we actually would ask you not to try to qualify. Either way, yes or no, that decision does have to be made today in fairness to all the other members waiting to enroll. But the great part about the benefits is they're pretty much a no-brainer. So you're going to know at the end whether or not it does fill a need for you or your family. The only thing that they ask me to ask you as I'm going through this stuff here, if you have any questions at all, will you stop me and ask me? Get the verbal yes. You stop me and ask me? Yes? You as well, Mary?
Yes.
All right, great. Either way, like I said, your group still does value your opinion in the officer report form. It's basically like my report card. It goes back to the union, let them know I'm serving you guys effectively.
It's your bid.
No, that's the so basically paragraph. Everyone should have a so basically paragraph. It's very, very important. Right after the letter, so basically.
Oh.
Yep.
After the mandatory.
Right after the
Ours is
letter.
a little bit different. We draw our needs analysis on the board.
Yep, I know. There should be a so basically right after your mandatory read-off letter.
I think there is.
Yeah. It might have a couple different words in it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Literally, so basically.
Cool. And that's important because now I read the letter, and then I'm letting and I think it even they might even have in there like, we just didn't want to get you all the way to the end, and you say something silly like I want to think about it. You know what I mean? And that eliminates I want to think about it, right?
Yeah.
All right. So then you hit continue. This is where it gets easy, guys. All right. Say the words on the screen. Let's examine the need for final expense protection. And then shut up and play the thing.
The warmth of family is one of the most beautiful and valued things in life. For this reason, saying goodbye to a loved one can be...
So this is the only video that I play. I don't really play too many videos. Starting out, you should play all of them. If you're not good at this, I did when I started. I played all of them. But I'm good and I like to talk. So This is the only time I ever even play a video in my presentation for a couple reasons. One, it gives me a second to breathe, right? Because I just been talking my butt off, right? I just read the paragraph, did this so basically. When it just goes over a lot of good information for the client. I stopped it here because typically when it gets to this point in the video, I'll say, just like we went over, Joe, you know, the average funeral costs about 15,000, right? And then I'll just keep letting it roll. I'll usually have it queued up so when it gets to that point, I can just throw that in there. And then I'll even show them on the screen, just like we talked about on your needs analysis. Average funeral today, 10 to 15,000. In the next 20 years, we're expected to at least be at 30. And that's a car to die at that point, right? Now, the next part's really even crazier is Social Security. You guys know when we pass away, they only pay out a $255 death benefit. That's what funerals cost when they first start giving Social Security out, and they never increased it since. It's literally like flowers nowadays, right? So the rest of this video goes to say a lot of our members have life insurance through work, just like you guys. But whenever they retire, they find out that it all goes away. So they say, who would be responsible for these final expenses? Would it be a spouse? Would it be children? Sometimes it's people's grandchildren. And then how? Well, we hope that they don't try to sell your home, borrow from friends or family, or go on Facebook and start one of those GoFundMes,
Oh my
right?
God.
So what the company did was they actually developed your freedom of choice. And by that point, I'm usually a little bit farther along. I'll pull up the freedom of choice on the screen, you know, just to kind of show them how it works, right? After this video, let's just skip it because, I mean, you guys would typically play it. After the video, you hit continue, it brings you to the screen and say, all right, guys, you got to recap it. You got to recap the video, all right? The reason why they had me play that video was really two main reasons. One, it refreshes everyone on what actually goes into a funeral. You know, a lot of families aren't aware of all the steps. I mean, let's face it, nowadays, guys, they say planning out a funeral is almost as big as planning a wedding. The only difference between planning a wedding and a funeral is a wedding, heck, you can push it back a year. Heck, you can cancel the thing altogether. But a funeral, you got like 2, maybe 3 days tops. So at the worst time of your family's life, they want to keep it simple for you. And that's why they brought up your freedom of choice. Not the freedom of choice. That's why they brought up your freedom of choice. So how this works, Natalie, is if something did, God forbid, happen to you, your beneficiary, you know, the kids, hopefully down the road, would just go down to their choice of any funeral home, right? Now, they're not going to go into that funeral home saying, hey, my mom had 30,000. What can I get? Because guess what they're going to charge them? All 30,000, right? So what we do is we just put a policy number on the back. It actually allows your family to go in and negotiate the price. Now, once they come up with the amount, they'll fill it in, sign it down here like a blank check, hand this certificate over to the funeral home director, and they're done. They don't have to do anything from that point on. Now, keep this in mind. You know, Joe, we just lost you. That funeral home is going to want paid when? Immediately. So, you know, basically, Aubrey, you know, within 3 days of losing your best friend, you now have to come up with a check to pay off the funeral home. And instead of you having to come up with that check, the funeral home will just call this number right on the front. They'll send out 2 checks immediately. One for whatever was negotiated on the back, going directly to the funeral home. Anything left over, Aubrey's going to come back to you within a week in a lump sum, tax-free check to wrap up additional costs. So, Edgar, do you have any questions on how your freedom of choice certificate works?
No.
No? Aubrey, do you have any questions on how your freedom of choice certificate works? It's done. It's their freedom of choice certificate from that point moving forward. Okay? It's no longer yours. It's no longer yours. It's theirs. I asked them if they had any questions on how their freedom of choice certificate works. And he said no. And I asked her, and she said no. So it's yours now. It's done. I sold it. It's over. All you gotta do is fill out the app, right? Now, check this out. Verbiage. Verbiage is key. I don't know what you guys say here, but what I was taught to say by Mr. Vina, because Mr. Vina trained me whenever the laptop came out, is he said, use this word, the expert simulator. Okay? So the expert simulator Joe recommends everybody in your age bracket to have a death benefit of $30,000 minimum. I would say minimum. I would say up to 30. I say at least $30,000 in place to guarantee that when you pass away, your funeral expenses wouldn't be a burden to your family again. Right now, Joe, it's showing you have an existing of 0. So you still have a need of 30,000, and the expert simulator was actually recommending making sure you had that full need of 30,000 taken care of so that your funeral and final expenses will never be a burden to your family ever again. Now, Mary, the expert simulator recommended 30,000 as well for you to have as death benefit. It's showing right now you actually have an existing of 0. It was recommending making sure you had the full need of 30,000 taken care of, and the expert simulator is recommending that be taken care of so your funeral and final expenses wouldn't be a burden to the family ever again. And you can say, so your funeral and final expenses wouldn't be a burden to the kids if something happened to Joe and you were the one left over, right? Start painting the picture in their head. All right, great. Next, let's examine the need for monthly income protection. I'm not going to sit here and play this clip. I'm going to skip through it. Tell them money don't grow on trees. If it did, we'd be rich, right? 5 years, based on the numbers we put in there for Joe, came out to 180. He has 110 through his car insurance company, though, remember? No, he had 100 through his car and 10 through the union. So he actually only has a need of 70,000 to have a full 5 years of his income protected. Mary, 5 years, came out to 60 grand, was recommending making sure she had the full 60 grand. After that, it says, would you like to display ADB products in this offer? If you click no, it typically will just skip it. All right. If you click yes, you're going to maybe get a higher check. All right. So I always click yes. Let's examine the need for mortgage protection.
Everyone.
You can play it if you want. It's a good video. It's about a minute. And look, it says it's going to be on who? The primary. The primary is the first person you put in there. And it's using, just so you know, ADB protection. What's ADB? Accidental death. Great job. So basically, you have 210,000 left on the house. It's showing you have an existing of 0. You still have a need of 210, but it actually was only recommending you getting 200. Just so you guys know, the most accidental you can get for one person at one time is 200,000. You're never gonna be able to get more for them and kick it off. Okay. It says you could actually go up to 300,000, but they have to have other policies in force. Okay. So you could add more on down the road. Tell them, hey, I could come back and get you another 100,000, down the road. And then when you hit continue here, this is important. Look, remember they had kids. So I looked at that bottom box. Remember that summary box I showed you guys? Well, this is going to take me to the page where the money pops up. But if I looked at that bottom box and it said CE protection, that would be child education, I knew there would be one more set of videos. But there's not going to be any more sets of videos. What's going to happen is when you guys hit this continue button down here, the price is going to pop up. So what I would recommend you do is stop sharing. Pull it back. Bring it back here, okay? Why? Because they're going to get sticker shock when they see that $485 it's going to cost them a month. All right? So I'm going to pull it back up, though, so you guys can see what happens. But in this situation, I pull it back. I don't let them see when I continue. Because look, it only came out to 184, which ain't bad. But usually it's like $300, $400, sometimes $500 a month, okay? Now, you have to click next benefit, and then all the way until it says continue before you can go to the super combo, okay? At this point, you can add stuff on in here if you'd like. You guys know you can mess around in this box. Like, if you want to change this amount from 30,000 to, say, 50,000, you can do so. You just have to hit recalculate, okay? So you can change it in this stuff up here. It's okay. You can mess with the whole plan right up in here. Personally, I just like to look at this box down here. I'm going to show you this really quick. I like to look at this, the optional coverage areas. So I put the kids on there. When I get to the super combo, this is important because then you're going to have to enter the kids in or not. Just add them. Add child 1, add child 2. Okay. And then hit submit. And now you can mess around in your super combo. And the super combo is where you can get your own rates. You can mess around with the products in different types of term, right? And that all takes place down here, which you'll learn this week. Okay, you'll learn that this week, guys. So you can mess around with that. But does this make sense so far, everybody? Are we on the same page with everything? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So we've been going for about 50 minutes. Why don't you guys take a little 10-minute break? We'll come back in. If there's any questions you guys have, we'll answer those. But then I want to make some breakout rooms real quick. There's what, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the screen, 2 here. So maybe you two can role play here. And then the 4 on the screen, I'll make 2 quick breakout rooms and we can do a couple practice reps. I don't know if he has the breakout rooms actually. Yeah, he does. And we can do some practice reps and then, you know, for the next 50 minutes and then we'll wrap this thing up. Okay. We'll be done at like 3 o'clock. Sound good? See you guys at about 10.